Started. Alex will join us in just one moment. So good morning, everyone. We have some special guests with us here today, and we can jump probably right into the agenda, and Alex can take over when he joins. But we thought it would be a good idea, as per the last meeting, to talk about the CSU 2030 and some of the budget updates. And we also have Chair Joanne Ryan from the Board of Regents joining us here today. Good morning to her, and thank you for joining the call today. And we also have Sean Bradbury and Ben Barnes. Ben Barnes is the Vice President for Finance and Administration for the System Office, and Sean is the Director of Government Relations for the System Office. So Ben, I'm not sure how you want to start this, if you have a presentation or if you want to jump right in, or how you folks want to do the presentation, but we can skip the attendance and quorum for now and let you guys do the informational presentation now.
Sure. I'm about to jump into the presentation, but you'll have to just give me a second while I open it up.
Sure.
Because I don't.
No problem. Take your time.
But first of all, I want to just tell everybody that President Chang sends his regrets. Unfortunately, something came up at the last minute and he's unable to attend, but not for lack of interest or desire. I'm sure he would prefer to be here than whatever it is that came up for him at the last minute. I am just about to open up our now I seem to only be able to find the hard copy one, not the presentation. So maybe Sean, do you have a copy of the PowerPoint presentation?
Yeah, which one? I can pull it up right now.
Just the general one, the one we used for first round.
Yeah, let me see if I can grab that.
Sorry, I'm not the most organized on where all of my files are, and I'm not in charge of keeping track of all those files, so forgive me for that. First of all, thank you all for giving us a chance to come and talk to you about some of the things that we're doing to try to garner some more resources for CSCU. This is an exciting year for us. I say that just because it's always an exciting year at CSCU, but this one, I think we have really a good prospects for making some significant gains in resources for the colleges and the universities both. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the plan that we have submitted to the legislature, and then we'll be happy to take some questions about how that process works and what we can all do to make it be successful, and also any other issues you think are relevant for us. The CSU 2030 plan, which we have proposed to the legislature, has two major parts. In general, it is I wish Terrence were here. He's better at the hyperbolic descriptions of how awesome it is. But it is a bold and ambitious plan. It is it is multi-year. We've asked for resources between now and 2030. We've asked for resources across a broad number of areas that impact many aspects of student experience and student life at our institutions. It totals about $5 billion over 7 years, which is a pretty big number. That's on top of what we already normally get, which would end up being probably several billion over 7 years already. We're a big organization. We receive a lot of public subsidy, and we have a lot of things going on. So billions of dollars sound huge and awesome, and it is. We're a big organization, and it's not unreasonable for us to ask for this amount of money, given the number of students we serve and the number of institutions that we operate. The two parts of our plan are, I'm going to start with the capital portion. That's a little easier for me to explain, and then we'll go into the operating budget, which I think may be helpful to you all. And lead into a discussion about what's going on in the legislature. So the capital portion, we use bond proceeds. Bonds are when governments borrow money from private people and others. So the capital portion of the plan, here we go. The capital portion of our plan includes a 7-year, like a multi-year commitment of capital funds. one of the issues that we've had in the last 4 years really is that the way that the bond process works in Connecticut is that the legislature authorizes projects and funding for those projects, and then it goes to something called the Bond Commission, which is controlled by the governor and is populated by members of the governor's, the governor, the head of OPM, the head of the Department of Administrative Services, and some legislative leaders. But the Bond Commission agenda is set by the governor. And until something goes through that process, we can't proceed with the project. So we have lots and lots of projects that have been authorized, but we have not yet gotten permission from the governor to move forward. The level of funding we've received over the last few years has been about a third of what it was in the decade before that. All during the governorships of Governor Rell and Governor Malloy, we were seeing, significantly higher levels of investment in the facilities and campuses of our various institutions. So we've seen a real drought lately, and a whole bunch of projects that we had hoped to be moving forward with now have been stuck in neutral, waiting for action from a bond commission that seldom meets these days. So what we've asked for is a program, a multi-year program, sort of like the UConn 2000 program, which you may have heard of, which was a program that the University of Connecticut had that provided for multiple years of bond authorizations. We had one as well called CSU 2020. That program has mostly run its course. I don't know if any of you are from Southern, if you've seen the business school under construction over on Farnham Avenue. That is the last project in the CSU 2020 program that was funded, and there's been no new funding into that program either. So we're now asking for that to be re-upped and to add new 7 years of new life into the CSU 2020 program. We call it 2030 because we're past 2020 now, and allow that to go forward. There are a whole bunch of exciting projects in the 2020 program, not only like renovation projects for campuses that you probably, I think at every campus, but some big ones include renovations at its Nuntuck Community College, which is, a middle school built in the 60s, renovations at Middlesex to the Wheaton and Snow academic buildings. The project includes new science labs and classroom space at Central Connecticut State University. It includes renovation of an academic building at Western. It includes a new sports center at Eastern Connecticut State University. It includes projects at Naugatuck Valley. There's a big urgent project to renovate Keeney Hall at Naugatuck Valley. So there's lots and lots of projects across the system, large and small. Those are some of the big ones. One of the most exciting big projects that we've included, and the one that's really kind of a new showpiece for the proposal, is an updated facility for Capital Community College. If any of you are students there or have been students there, you know that it's located up on the upper floors of a former department store in downtown Hartford, which has some style points because it's a stylish old building. On the other hand, it's really hard to get to. There are it makes it very difficult for students to getting right into the middle of downtown Hartford is challenging sometimes, as it is. And then once you get there, you have to find your way through the lobby and up the escalator and then to the elevator lobby and up the elevator. It's very difficult to get into Capital Community College, and it really does not reflect what we see as should be one of the main flagships of our community college system. It's in one of the major cities in Connecticut. We have a showpiece at Gateway Community College. Housatonic is also a wonderful campus with lots of investment in it. Capital is next. We think the Capital needs a new campus in or around downtown Hartford that will allow students to be served in a more traditional campus type environment and will allow us to serve you better. We firmly believe that requiring community college students to take classes in facilities that don't meet their needs or are old and run down and in need of renovation is disrespectful to our students and not what they deserve. We think that our community college students deserve to be going to school in excellent facilities that meet their needs. And Capital is one of the examples where that's not happening now. And we very much would like to make that change. So that's a big project. Building a new community college campus is an expensive undertaking, but we've included that in our program. And if it's approved, we would begin the preliminary planning and be going into construction within a few years of a new Capital Community College. So that program is in the works here. This is a summary of the types of projects that are in it. Other than Capital, there's not a whole lot of new construction. It's mostly renovation and replacement of existing facilities. There are a few places where there's a minor addition. So like at Middlesex, for instance, there's a small addition to connect the Wheaton and Snow buildings. But it's mostly renovation, replacement, new construction. New construction is rare. We have also projects for technology, for infrastructure projects. That means things like roofs and heating systems and sort of boring things that are necessary to keep our facilities up and running. We have some money for advanced manufacturing and green energy as well. Those are you can see there, that's the summary of the projects that we want to include. It's a total of about $2 billion. We will be going to the Finance Committee with a proposal to carry this out sometime in the next several weeks. There will be a public hearing, we believe, of our plan and the bill that we're proposing to enact that. We certainly will talk, I'm sure, about a little bit about advocacy as well, but please bear in mind that that's coming up. And if you have thoughts about whether or not the state should be improving our facilities, there will be an opportunity for you to share those in an effective way coming up soon. Yeah, Sean.
And do you want to, I can jump it back if we want to go over the appropriation side. And
Yeah,
then maybe
I'll do that.
Difference between our ask and the governor's proposal, and then probably jump into Q&A from that. Does that work?
Perfect. That would be great. Thank you. You can see that Sean and I rehearsed this presentation extraordinarily well. We actually did talk about it on the phone 10 minutes ago. So obviously the appropriation side, which is the part, the appropriations means the sort of annual operating support that we receive at the colleges and universities is really very important. We have some severe financial challenges right now. Over time, our block grant has essentially been flat. The only thing that has grown in our support from the state is support of our fringe benefits for our faculty and staff. And those costs have gone up. And here you can see on this, the blue bars on this table that's the block grant money that we use. That helps us run the institutions, pay the salaries of faculty and staff, pay for the utility bills and the floor wax and the paper towels and books and all the things that we would need to operate our institutions. That's in blue. The light gray bars is what the state helps us with fringe benefits. And that's gone up a lot, largely because the state has, starting in about 2014, started paying a lot more money in to deal with our unfunded pensions at the state level. So the state has been trying to catch up because they had been not paying enough into the pension fund before. They're back on track and paying more to make up for shortfalls in the past. And so as a result, the fringes that we have to pay for our employees has gone way up. Again, largely because of the state's decisions about unfunded pension liability. So you can see that piece has gone up, but the blue part that really helps us operate our institutions and provide services and staff and faculty that you see and interact with, that's stayed relatively flat. I mean, it's gone up and down a little bit based on how flush the state is feeling, but is basically muddled along at the same level since 2007. In addition, there's a lot of one-time support. You can see that in 22 and 23, the last 2 years there. The one-time support has come during the pandemic. The pandemic, we received a lot of federal money in fiscal 20 and 21. to help with the drop off in enrollment during the pandemic. And then the state came in and helped to make up for some of the loss of federal funds. And now those state funds are at risk of going away, which would leave us with a major hole in our budget as we go forward. Now, the reason some of this is because our costs have gone up a lot in the last few years. There was a major settlement of an agreement with our employees about a year ago that is raising the costs of community colleges and university operations by about 15% over the last couple of years. So what we proposed is we call it appropriations package. These are the line items in the state budget that that come to support our institutions. There are 3 block grants, the Charter Oak, community colleges, and state university block grants, and you can see those numbers there. And then there's a couple of smaller lines for operation of the board and a couple of other specialized areas that the state has supported us on. And you can see our requests are our requests for 24 and 25. The first year, there are 3 years shown here. 23 is the current year we're in. 24 and 25 are the 2 years that the legislature is considering now. And you can see we've asked for large increases in funding. I would look at the agency total as probably the more relevant part because we're trying to make up for the large amount of federal and one-time funding that the state provided in 23. You can see there's 178 million of American Rescue Act funding and carry forward funding. That means basically money that the state found in the sofa cushions that they made available to us this year. Big sofa cushions, I guess, with $58 million in it. But all those funds were brought to bear for helping us get through this year. And we need the state to step up and try to make these things permanent for us. And that's what we've proposed to make the level of funding that the state's provided to us this year permanent going forward, and even to grow it a little bit. Now, there are a couple of areas where we're asking them to grow to really add new programs in addition to meeting our, helping us solve our deficit. The first of those is here. You can see, maybe it's on the next slide. I'm going to talk about PACT, Sean. Is there a PACT slide next? Oh, this is perfect. So the first thing that there are 3 kind of big areas of growth in our budget request. The first is what we call PACT Plus. If some of you I hope many of you are beneficiaries of the PACT program in the community colleges. It's a last dollar program, which means, we accept you, we credit you with Pell and Roberta Willis or any of the other major grant programs that are available in Connecticut. But then the PACT program, if you're eligible for it, pays the remainder of your tuition and fees at the community colleges. I think we have now about 10,000 students in the PACT program. It costs about $18 million this year. They recently expanded the eligibility to cover students who are taking 9 credits or more, and
6.
Oh, I'm sorry. 6 credits or more. So you have to be half time or more. But there's still some restrictions. Like you have to be first time ever in college. You can't, once you start in the program, you can't stop out for a year or a semester. You have to go continuously. You have to be a graduate of a Connecticut high school. We're proposing that they eliminate all those restrictions and make that into a true free community college program for everyone, so that it would serve adult learners, people who are coming back to school, people who are, transplants from another state, for whatever reason, are not eligible under the current program. We'd like to expand that. That costs about $50 million a year. So we've requested that. In addition, we've asked for money, I think $32 million a year, to expand the PACT program into the universities, so that what we proposed is for certain high demand fields, they could, like teaching or nursing, that students would be given the same free college grants through the PACT program at the universities. The legislature is considering those proposals, and I think there are a lot of folks in the legislature who really like them. So we'll see how that develops. But we've asked for a lot of new money for student financial assistance. We appreciate that. One of the real advantages we offer is that we are low priced, and we want to build on that and strengthen that for CSCU institutions and really try to reduce it down. We also, I think, would ask for a small amount of patch to help students at Charter Oak. The next area we've asked for an expansion is student supports and wraparound services. We've asked for, I think, $20 million in each of the colleges and the universities to give to the campuses to provide additional wraparound supports. This is mental health services, hunger, food pantries, transportation assistance, direction, helping students access healthcare, access childcare, access whatever kind of wraparound supports are going to be necessary for them to be successful in school at the colleges and the universities. We would provide the funding to those institutions, and they would work with their students and campuses to determine exactly which mix of services were appropriate to their institutions. But we think that that's a meaningful amount. That would be a major expansion of some of the student support services that we currently offer across the system. And then last, we've asked for some money to do academic innovation. It's sort of seed money to help start new academic programs in areas that students are interested in. Whether it's new online programs in areas that we don't currently have them, or programs that address current workforce needs. Some of the examples of new developing programs are, data science and specializations in nursing and healthcare, computer science. So a whole series of areas where there is a demand for additional course and program offerings amongst students in Connecticut and nationally, and we would like to put in money to expand some of those programs. So that's what our legislative request is for operating support. It's pretty comprehensive. It covers a lot of territory. It fills our big deficit, but also goes further and asks for new resources in those areas I just described.
And
So I'm going to turn it over to Sean to talk about what's next and how we get this money.
Yeah, so and I know a lot of that can be confusing too, so I want to give you a quick overview of where we are in the process we have a slide where I want to show you the difference between what we propose, what the governor has proposed, and kind of what are the next steps in the budget process. Because I know that I've been working in this industry for years, comfortable for me, but for folks who, like all of you, don't work in government relations daily and don't deal with the daily, ups and downs of the state budget, sometimes they can be confused about like where we are. So the process for the state budget, we work with the OPM, the governor's budget office, the governor's office, and the legislature leading into the session of what are our needs that we've identified for the year, what are our budget requests, and what kind of funds we're asking for. So we've put that forward. The start of the session, which was back in January, they gavel in, we start working with folks. And then what happened in early February was the governor finally releases his budget and his proposed funding levels for, the state agencies, public higher education, all the quasi-publics. So we've had that for around a month. And we'll bring up a slide shortly so you can see what he has proposed funding. That's kind of step one in the process, or step maybe 1A. Right now, we're working with the Appropriations Committee and advocating with legislators on there about what does their budget look like, because everybody gets a say in this process. The Gov puts forward his vision, the legislature working through the Appropriations Committee puts forward their vision for a budget, which they finalize that at the middle of April this year. And then that's still not kind of like the final budget. Then the Gov's office and the legislature work together to build either up or down off of either the Gov's budget or the Appropriations budget from there. And they finalize it by the end of session, which this year is the first week of June. So, we're roughly a third of the way through the process right now. And right now our focus is on working with the legislature to advocate funding up above what the governor has proposed and funding at the levels that we have requested in CSU 2030. that's the kind of that side that Ben talked about second, the appropriation side. That's where that piece is. The finance piece, which is funding all of our capital projects, the $2.1 billion, that will be a separate standalone bill in the finance committee that is going to drop sometime in the next week or two. We're sending over the language, I think today. We finalized it. We expect, the committee has already told us they'll have a standalone day with a dedicated hearing for that bill that will go up before them and make the case. And that's where I think we'll be soliciting a lot of input from all of you to hopefully get students, get faculty, get institutions of support to turn out to talk about, the need to reinvest in our facility side. We had that for, I think some of you also joined us as speakers on our student panels for the Appropriations Committee a few weeks ago. That was kind of the public hearing and our chance to make our case on the operating fund side with approps. What's coming next is making our case publicly for the capital project side in the finance committee. So that's just a little level set for you all, where that process sits. And what we always joke around with working with the legislature, it's never over till it's over. No matter what's going to come out of committee and no matter what we propose, we could get everything we want out of committee and it's still not the end of the day. We still have to fight every single day to make sure that what we want gets in the final product, which in most years gets passed by the last week of session, but there's always the possibility they go into special session. It's never over till it's over. So we're always fighting on this side. But let me pull up the comparison between our budget and the Gov's budget, so you all can kind of see where we are and what how it looks compared to what Ben just walked you through and what the kind of reality that we're facing from folks. So let me see if this will work. Here we go. Oh, Ben, you're muted.
Yeah, I try not to let Sean talk about numbers too much. Sometimes he does anyways. He's actually pretty good at it. But I'll just go through this. So this is for the 24. The first column is what we got this year. The second column is what the governor proposed. And then the third is what we have proposed for 2030. And as you can see, we're well ahead. We're $169 million above, that's this number in the bottom, above what the governor has proposed. Now, a fair amount of that is we asked for a lot of money for PACT. We asked for $81 million to support the PACT program. And so, obviously that's a big number. We're $60 million above where the governor is. But even leaving that out, we're $100 million above the governor's proposed budget on basic operating support for the colleges and universities. And that difference is, not only did we ask for more money, but we asked for it all to be included in the block grants, this part at the top of the schedule. The governor has included this $97.7 million in American Rescue Plan Act, which is the federal stimulus money that the state is still trying to spend down that they got from COVID. Obviously we welcome money however it comes. As I said to my colleagues last year, one-time money is better than no-time money. We can live to fight another day. However, we'd really prefer to have recurring commitments of funding so that we can make plans and honor them with our students going forward. If students don't come for 1 year, and sometimes they do, but we hope they stick around for 2 or 4 or 6 years and take full advantage of what we have to offer at CSCU. We need multi-year predictability in our funding, and providing us with one-time money is one of the problems we face. So the governor's budget is lower than what we've asked for significantly, and also significantly relies more heavily on one-time funds, which we find less than ideal. So we are well below what the governor has proposed in terms of his budget recommendation. I have some, this puts us in a difficult position. Obviously, at the end of the day, the budget that gets enacted will be a law, a public act, which means it has to be approved by both chambers of the legislature by a majority, and then signed by the governor, or at least not vetoed by the governor. And so we are very mindful that as we ask for a lot more money than the governor proposed, that we are trying to do that in a respectful way and in a way that that the governor, we're trying to show the governor the light about why we're worth the money and why it's a good investment of state resources, rather than, we're trying not to, obviously if he elects to be upset about our request or about the way we've conducted ourselves during session, that would unfortunately increase the chances that he would either veto the budget or more likely to simply demand reductions to our funding in the final negotiations with the legislature. Typically, they work all that out in the last week or so of the legislative session, and we want to make sure that the governor ultimately is willing to accept a higher level of appropriation than he originally proposed, which I think that's top of mind as we go through this process.
And just to build on that, you may notice like we've taken a very different tack than our colleagues at UConn in approaching this budget, and I think approaching the way that we characterize it publicly and characterize what the governor has funded at. I'm an alum of UConn, no shade at my alma mater, but I think our way of approaching it is much more collaborative and gets to what Ben was saying is you don't want to burn that bridge with the governor. He's got to sign the budget eventually, and as long as you keep that door open to continuing conversations, we're hopeful that we can help him see the light of why we're a priority to be funded. The one thing we do push back on is the characterization that you'll see that you have seen kind of especially centered around UConn, but the critique is duly applied to UConn and us, is that there's this claim that we are simply kind of just belly aching that we're not getting this one-time money again and again, that we got this bonanza of federal funds from, ARPA and all the COVID related federal stimulus money, that we're just complaining that we're not getting that on a recurring basis. And that's patently untrue. What the real distinction is that what had happened like last year was with the new state labor contracts, which we fully support. Our employees need to get adequately compensated. We do not oppose any of that. But what has happened in every other year when those new contracts come is we get the majority of those new costs funded by the state. What is the difference this year is in the governor's new proposed budget is they're not meeting even half of those costs. So we have, I think, around $180 million shortfall or of our CBAC related wage and fringe costs that the governor didn't include in their budget, and are claiming that some of the money that we got for those costs were one-time funds, that we shouldn't rely on that coming again and again, but they were one-time funding to cover recurring costs. So that's all to say that there's a disagreement between us and UConn versus the governor's office on what even should our base funding be, or what is the reality of what our new costs are. And that, I think, gets lost a lot in the public discourse, where you'll hear the governor's budget director say, we have not cut public higher ed. And that's true. We are getting slightly more money than we got in recurring funds last year. But they also, it's like if somebody offered to take you out to dinner and they made you order the upgraded meal and made you order the expensive bottle of wine and jacked up the bill for you, and then said, well, I'm only going to pay for the basic meal. Yeah, they didn't cut you, but they also negotiated a higher bill for you and now are sticking you with it. So that's, I think, the way that we find ourselves. It's a weird way to characterize it. So that's where you may see, it's the challenge of kind of messaging this to folks of, we are not, they're going to say we're not getting cut, but we are also saying that you are wildly underfunding what our fixed costs are, and those fixed costs have been established by your office. So did I mischaracterize that, Ben, or is that a good snapshot?
No, I think that's fair. I mean, and the only thing I would say is that we have strong support in the legislature for the community colleges and the universities. There are, I think about, one of the appropriations chairs in the Senate, and the Senate has been wonderful to us, Kathy Austin, She graduated from a community college. She believes in public higher education. She's on the board of the foundation at Three Rivers. She's a huge supporter of the entire system and believes that what we're doing is terribly important, and wants us to find a way to be successful. There lots of our other colleagues feel the same way. Are very supportive of public higher education. So I ultimately think the legislature will support us, and that the governor ultimately, I don't think I think he will go along with that as part of an agreement. That's my hope, and but it's not just I hope I'm not being Pollyanna, but I hope that based on some on knowledge of the way he has reacted to legislative changes to his budget in the past. He tends to accept the legislature putting more money in areas that are their priorities. And I think it's my hope that he'll accept that again this year. So we're working toward that good outcome.
So I think on the where can you all get involved, or where student voices can be important in this process? I know we've gotten a lot of requests from folks on the SAC, from folks at your colleagues in student government across the system. The next opportunity to really have your voices heard will be at the Finance Committee when we're hearing the bill on the capital project side of 2020 or 2030. So particularly for folks like from campuses that need a lot of investment. So if you're a Capital Community College student, where there's going to be a new facility for capital in the air, showing up and finding either submitting written testimony or coming and testifying yourself, or even just emailing your legislators. They don't have to be, the legislators for Hartford area, but let's say if you live in Windsor, you want to reach out to Representative Khan. You can absolutely, whoever is the legislators who represent your home or your college, you can reach out to either one and let them know why this is a priority and why you feel like you want them to support a new state investment in your facilities, because they matter to you. If you're sitting in a classroom at Capitol, that you have a chalkboard at the front of the room, you have seats that are 20 years old, and you have a big column in between you and the whiteboard or the chalkboard to even see the lesson, pointing that out to folks. We found even providing pictures of the facilities that you find objectionable. We have ADA compliance issues at some of our campuses. You have leaky roofs. You have, if you're at Eastern, you may have a soggy softball field that you have to play on. Letting them know to say, look, my colleagues that I went to school with who are going to UConn are not facing the same challenges we are at our facilities. And we're asking you to invest in us, the same way you invest in my friends and colleagues and neighbors at UConn. Those are some of the messaging ways that we have found helpful. But if any of you want to get involved, please reach out to Angelo. He can connect you to me, or reach out to me directly, whatever works. I'm happy to talk with you one-on-one. We can work. If you have a group of students at your school, I'm happy to work with you all and help you engage in the process, help you write testimony, help you submit, help you reach out to your legislators, and help you be advocates for yourselves, your colleagues, and your institutions. Our student voices are the most important voices in this process. Legislators hear from me and Ben every single day. They love us, but they get tired of hearing at us eventually. That you all, and I know it sounds cheesy and corny to say, but you all are who they actually care about and who they really want to serve. And hearing from you is what really motivates them to make change. We can tell them all day long, identify the needs, show them the data, tell them the heart-wrenching stories, but it is hearing those firsthand that really motivates them to want to invest in us. So want to have that offer out there that we're always happy to help. Myself, my colleague Amanda, Ben, all of us are here for that. Good question. So Sam asked, what day is the Finance Committee hearing? That hasn't been scheduled yet. But what I can offer to do is when that is up there and we have that public hearing, I can share that with Angelo. We can maybe share the ways that you all can submit testimony with maybe some suggestions, some framing of this is what the bill does. This is what we found are helpful talking points, and we can attach. So I will drop in the chat the link to the 2030 proposal online. What's helpful for that is there's a list of because the capital project side can get confusing, but there's a full list by campus of all the capital projects that will be funded. So if you're at Nuntuck, you can look and see what projects are getting funded at my school. If you're at Three Rivers, so like if you're in Norwalk, the B Wing project is in there. You have, if you're at Eastern, your athletic fields are in there. You can identify what projects do I care about at my institution that are in here, because you may even be able to say, oh, I take bio, 201 in that class. And let me tell you, I was, my lab bench is constantly getting a roof leak sitting on there. Or, we've had to reschedule my class at Norwalk because the B Wing had taken the classroom down 4 separate times because of a leaky ceiling. Things like that you can tell those personal stories. That's what they want to hear. Especially if you've had challenges with our facilities. If you're a baseball player at Eastern and you tripped and sprained your ankle because the field's so soggy and unkempt that it's creating a safety hazard, let them know. Like, we want them. We normally are bad at kind of airing our the dirt and grime. We always want to show legislators the shiny new buildings. We want to show them the exciting new things we do. We don't do a good job at showing, like, hey, here's the leaky roof we have, or here's the bathroom that's not ADA accessible, that is the only one in that building for our students that we haven't been able to update because you haven't approved funding for us for 6 years of requests for that. Those are things that are helpful to point out to them. I think the other question in the chat, I just want to make sure we're addressing those, is what was it? Can you talk a little bit more about how PAC Plus will be applied to college? Like, how will those funds be distributed to students? So good question. So currently at the community colleges, the PAC program now has been indicated as a last dollar program. So what that is they layer in all the other forms of financial aid first before PAC is applied. So if you're a student so I'm looking across the street over at Capital. If you're a Capital Community College student and you're taking 12 credits, you apply whatever Pell dollars you're eligible for, and other federal financial aid is the first layer to get applied. After that, there's state institution or state financial aid with the Roberta Willis program, and there's institutional aid through your college. So Capital has a pot of money that they give out as financial aid that's dedicated to Capital, and then that final layer is PACT. So for most students, if you're fully Pell eligible, you're receiving the maximum Pell grant, or you're receiving another combination of financial aid that fully meets your cost of attendance, the PAC program has minimum grant awards that are then applied. So if you didn't have your full cost, PAC meets the rest of that cost. But if you already are getting a free college because you have max Pell, PAC still and you qualify for PAC, it will still give you a minimum grant award. So currently that's $250 for a full-time student. For a part-time student, I want to say it's $150.
Yes.
And then what we are proposing includes increasing those minimum grant awards, because that's really important for that student that is already getting max Pell to help address all their other costs of attendance. That's books and supplies, that is your transportation, your food, your housing, all the things that our students end up having where we say that life gets in the way. That minimum grant award is really helpful at addressing, the ways that life can get in between our students and their success at our institution. So we have a proposal to kind of expand that to the CSUs. That is still kind of getting figured out. Legislators have had proposed a kind of A to B program where you'd have to do your first 2 at a community college and you'd finish your second 2 at a CSU, and they would fund it at a similar level. We have proposed in distinct majors that are kind of the in demand. So nursing, allied health, other various healthcare areas like computer science and STEM, education. These areas that we have critical shortage areas in the state. We're short 6,000 nurses in this state. There's 100,000 jobs in general that are going unfilled. We've all come up with different proposals for the CSU expansion of PACT. How that will ultimately shake out is going to be a kind of collaborative discussion amongst us in the legislature and the governor's office. And we may not get that this year. That's a big jump, but we're going to keep pushing that, whether we get it this year or next year. Expanding PAC to the CSUs is going to be incredibly helpful to making sure that there is access to a free 4-year degree in our state beyond just a free. So I hope does that answer your question on how PAC works, or? Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
So there's another item here, budget tuition update. I can give you a little bit of information about that before we turn it over. We have not established a budget for next year for the individual institutions, although we're developing that. We will enact a budget for the institutions in June once we know what the state support is going to be. Obviously, that's going to have a huge impact on how challenging that process is going to be. In terms of tuition, the university's established tuition for next fall last October, I believe, which that is going forward. That included a 3% increase, I believe, in tuition and fees at the universities. At the colleges, we have not established new tuition levels for next year. We are going to be bringing to the finance committee of the Board of Regents next week a sort of technical change to some of the fees at the community colleges, basically because it's the mergers going through and we need to, align all the fees so that every community college student pays the same fees. But that's not the same as we're not changing tuition. I mean, their individual fees may change by a few bucks, but the basic tuition we're leaving alone for now. Obviously, if the state elects to deeply underfund us, we may have to resort to raising tuition, but we're hopeful that we won't have to do that. And so in the meantime, we're simply making the change that we need to make now on fees so that we can begin to process new registrations and students signing up students have already started to sign up for register for classes in the fall. Obviously, the universities they have, but at the colleges as well. So we need to make some of these technical changes. But we are not going to be acting on any increase in tuition for the colleges until we know what the state's contribution is. I know that a lot of state legislative leaders have heard from you all. And your colleagues and your friends and your neighbors that tuition should not go up. And I know that we hear from them that they don't want us to raise tuition. We're kind of leaving that as an open question. I don't want to raise tuition either, but we are going to do what we have to do to make sure our institutions are able to continue to meet to serve you. And I hope that doesn't involve tuition. I will have to tell you at the community colleges, the tuition is pretty low. I'm not belittling the difficulty it is to pay for it, but I just mean that in the sense that, raising 1% on tuition at the community colleges doesn't raise a lot of money to address some of the budget challenges that we have. If we could not solve our budget hole simply by raising tuition, we would have to raise tuition so high that it would be, all of this community college students would throw up their hands and walk away. You can't double the tuition and expect students to stick around. But that's the kind of thing we might have to do if the state doesn't step forward. Now, I don't think we would do that under any circumstances, but it's possible that there will be, that we will have to raise tuition to some degree. But we're really working very hard to avoid doing that. As I said at the very beginning, I think one of our great strengths is our affordability, and we want to build on that.
And I think that's where we've often told legislators, like they in many ways have more of a say over what our tuition is than we do. Like the levels that they fund us at kind of dictate what we are the room that we have to make up in tuition. Like Ben said, we can never tuition our way out of the budget crises that we face. Like you're talking about thousands of dollars of tuition increases annually to cover those shortfalls if they're not funded by the legislature. That's where we try to turn it back to them. So when they say don't increase tuition, we're like, well, please fund us to a level that we don't have to. No, we don't want to. No one wants to increase tuition. It is not a decision that is ever the front of mind or first choice for us. But the best way to prevent that is for the legislature to fully meet our needs. And that's one way. If you're reaching out to folks, if you see legislators in your community, if they come to campus to talk, we always encourage, like, be respectful, but definitely like put it back on them to say, like, we appreciate like all that you do. The best way you can help us continue to access higher education, to have an affordable institution, is to make sure that you're meeting our needs. Because, you know, unlike UConn only relies on about 24% of their funding comes from the state. For us, it's around 40%, I want to say, at the CSUs, and closer to 60% or more at the community colleges. So when, you know, our reliance on the state to balance our budget is dramatically more than what UConn does. And you can see that, you know, UConn put out publicly, if they didn't get what they asked for, it would lead to a $3,000 a year tuition increase. Now, you can only extrapolate from there what that would mean for us with similar levels of cuts proposed in the governor's budget. It really is, I mean, the best way for them to increase accessibility and affordability and ensure that we continue to be the most affordable option for quality higher education in Connecticut is for them to actually fund us at the levels that we need.
I want to turn this over to Alex. Alex is the chair of the SAC. Alex, do you want to take over the Q&A? You're muted. Maybe. Can't hear you. Still can't hear you. Holly, do you want to go ahead?
Well, okay.
Oh,
there
now
we
we
go.
hear
I
you.
was just gonna echo what Sean said, and the best way to connect with your legislator, right, is to connect with them and tell them your story, right? So it might feel weird, like going up to somebody in person. Send them an email. Take 10 minutes to write what, you know, the impact of tuition is and books and fees on your college experience, right? Because those personal stories matter. They matter way more than some of the other things we tell them, right? Because then they hear from you and they're like, oh, I see that from someone else's perspective. So, so if seeing them in person feels weird, write them an email, right?
Yeah.
And my experience has been when I've done that, I've gotten responses. So.
And just to echo what Holly said too, no legislator is expecting you to, you know the ins and outs of our fringe benefit rates and the reimbursement we get from the state, or, you know, what section of statute we get reimbursed through for that out of the controller's line. Don't be your authentic selves and bring your stories. They're not looking for you to give us, you know, every budget talking point and every, you know, down to the dollar value of what we're asking for. Those we provide those to you so you can understand the challenges we're facing. They're not expecting students to talk about that, nor does it sound authentic when you do. Like, UConn often sends their students with pre-scripted talking points to say, well, actually, UConn Health's fringe benefit reimbursement rate is down by X million dollars. It's like that's not what students care about. They want to hear from you to say, like, hey, my library hours are cut. Like, that's BS. I should be able to go in the library and access the services I need on my schedule, not what funding dictates it's able to be open for. Or like, hey, I'm paying more in fees for this and I'm seeing reduced services. Like, can you give us the money that we can actually have the supports in place that I need to succeed? Like, challenges. Talk about, like, if you're struggling to pay your tuition, they want to hear that. They want to hear, like, oh, I didn't qualify for PACT because, you know, I went to you know, high school in Massachusetts. Like, you know, those are the stories that they want to hear to really help. You know, I'm just thinking of, you know, President Chang heard a great story from a student at Eastern the other day that, like, about the need to provide new facilities for their athletics teams. She's like, you know, she's a softball player there. Her dad was a baseball player there, like, you know, 2 decades ago. And she's like, he walked around with me and said the same facilities that he had 2 decades ago here at Eastern, the same doorknob, the same lockers, the same floors, that it's the same exact ones that he played on that she is. And that is not the case. That's not the case at UConn. That's not the case at some of our you know, our colleagues are a little bit better funded. Like, those are the stories legislators want to hear, because that's memorable. It sticks with them when they get to say, like, you know, we shouldn't have that. Like, that's a level of inequitable funding that we shouldn't be tolerating. Or if you can tell them, like, you know, talk about the classroom that you're in, or, like, you know, this bathroom's older than my grandmother. Why do we have that kind of facility here at our institution? No. But you know, it's one of those that like you want to paint the picture for them in something that is memorable, that's authentic, that's actionable. If you've listened to the stories that our students tell at appropriations, those are the kinds of stories that they tell them. Sometimes even just walking a legislator through like what the challenges that you have faced in accessing higher education. You know, if you're housing insecure, if you're food insecure, if you have colleagues who, you know, they had their transmission broke and they had to like juggle between, do I pay for books or pay for a transmission so I can get to school? Those are the real stories our students face that legislators really appreciate hearing, because those, to be frank, those aren't the challenges that our colleagues at UConn face. You know, they hearing our students' authentic stories is going to motivate a legislator to want to fund us much more than giving them the accurate numbers on our block grant or our fringe benefit reimbursements.
I just wanted to, can everyone hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So sorry about that, and sorry about the tardiness. So first off, yeah, so Sean, Ben, thank you both so much. Ben, I've seen many of Ben's presentations, so I know Ben's really good at making this understandable. And then Sean, you know, obviously just helping us out with that too. So I did want to ask a few questions too, just based off information that you guys just kind of gave to us, and also just want to comment on our legislation, and kind of just going off of what Sean said. I think especially with CT, and I've done a little bit of time working with different lobbying groups. We have a really down to earth legislation. They love to make jokes, and I think especially if you have the opportunity to speak with any of the legislators one on one, you can really get that sense of, okay, this is not a person that is just in their office all the time, or this is not a person that doesn't actually want to speak to people. They really do enjoy speaking to people, especially when they receive emails, because I feel like they don't get a lot of emails often from different constituents. So I just, if anyone does feel compelled or felt discouraged at any point to talk to a legislator, I really recommend it. They're very great. So I just want to put that out there. But I do have a question for Sean and Ben. So I think you briefly covered it, but what would be like worst case scenario if the funding still goes through at what it is right now and we didn't get the funding that we're requesting?
Well, you know, I try not to spend too much time planning for bad outcomes that I really don't think are going to happen. I mean, I think the worst case that I think is plausible is that we end up with tens of millions of dollars less than we need to operate. In which case we would have some level of reserves for the system. It's very difficult for us to get smaller in a hurry. We have collective bargaining agreements, faculty have tenure. We have we're accredited institutions, which mean that we have committed to teaching and carrying out programs that we've admitted students to. So we have teach out requirements if we were if we needed to get smaller somehow, either by eliminating programs or worst case closing campuses. We try not to say that out loud. We don't want to close campuses. We think we need them all. But if the legislature says, no, we're going to fund you less, you need to cut your spending by 10% or whatever it is, we have reserves that we would then use to maintain our operation in the short run. And then we would have to begin the process of identifying things that we would stop doing. And it'll take us a few years to get to that. I mean, whether it was eliminating academic programs, reducing our reach one way or another. I mean, I know I don't want to do that. I mean, well, let me say, first of all, we always are looking at academic programs, and if they're not enrolled, I mean, if there's an academic program where they're only, at Western recently they combined a couple of academic programs that literally had, a handful of students who are graduating in that major each year. And maintaining the number of faculty that they had, so they combined that program with a related program, and that allows them to keep their class sizes a little, at a level that we can sustain, and to ensure that everybody gets access to the classes that they need while not wasting any money we don't have to spend. So we're always looking at programs. We would have to accelerate that and start eliminating programs and be very careful about any new programs that we implemented. We would have to go and there would be generalized austerity in terms of, there would be cuts to lots of administrative positions. There would be cuts to, money that we spend on keeping our campuses looking good, or, money that we spend on, you know, uh, events, all kinds of things. So there would just, things would feel less generous around campus, as things that you appreciate aren't there anymore. Programs that you might have wanted to consider aren't available for students coming in, and generally we would allow staffing to get smaller. I don't think that laying people off is very, not only difficult for the people involved, but in the state system, it's very time consuming and expensive. So we would probably, use hiring freezes to allow things to go down by attrition. We might reach out to our faculty about trying to incentivize them to retire or to leave state. I mean, there are a whole bunch of things that we would do. None of them are any good to the institutions that we're in. I mean, I've thought through, and we, in our darkest hours, my staff and I have identified the kinds of steps we would need to take if that happens, and we're prepared if that's what's necessary. We have a job to do, and we will, our job isn't to decide how much money the state gives us. Our job is to do the best we can with the resources that we have, and we will do that. But we don't think that that's a good decision. We think that that's going to involve a whole bunch of cuts across our institutions that will harm students. So we don't want to do it. If we do it, we do have enough reserves so that we could stretch that process out over a few years, and you would see the institutions going into kind of retrenchment mode, which again, I don't want to do it, but that's how it would play out.
And I just want to build off on that, Alex, and just let you know that that is, it's not a or B. It's not, do we get 20, we either get 2030 or it is like apocalyptic scenarios that Ben just pointed out there too. It's like, it is not all or nothing. We can get a good chunk of what we've asked for with 2030, but they could also not fund a lot of those options in there, and we'll still be in a much better position than we are today. We asked for kind of what our goal and what our dream funding levels are in 2030, but that is not, all or nothing. If we don't get every dollar that we asked for, that we're going to be in an apocalyptic scenario. There is a level, I think we're not kind of publicly saying that, but there is a level of funding that if we don't get, there's going to be some really tough choices we face. But it is not that full request. There's somewhere in between. I think we're being specifically coy on that, or probably vaguely coy on that, to try to not let them understand, what is that kind of break-even level. But realistically, what's going to get passed at the end of the day, we know is not going to be everything that we asked for in 2030. They may scale back the PACT expansion less than what we asked for. We may get slightly less in block grant support, but more than what we asked for in certain areas. These are a negotiation and a conversation that is ongoing. And what we end up with, I do want to build up, Ben was very complimentary to Kathy Austin, the Senate chair of the appropriations committee, the House chair, Tony Walker. She is knows and loves our institutions more than probably anyone else in that building, as do many legislators. We can't really overstate how loved our institutions are by a lot of legislators in that building. And most of them are not going to tolerate a budget that is going to cause apocalyptic, harm to our institutions. So I want to caveat that by just saying Ben and his crew, he would not be doing his job if he didn't have plans and preparations in place for the worst case scenario. And for us to tell legislators, what does that worst case scenario look like so that they can make informed decisions. But, realistically, that final product is probably not going to be everything we wanted, but is going to probably end up helping us a decent amount. I just want to put those scenarios out there that it is not you should be, as you talk to legislators, you want them to understand there is a possibility of real harm if we're not funded, but understand that I don't want anybody losing sleep over. This is what I get paid to do is to make sure I'm screaming at legislators every day so that we can avoid that situation. I'm hopeful that we will, that if I do my job right, and Ben and the rest of us at System Office do our job right, we won't be facing those apocalyptic scenarios. And we're hoping, I am cautiously optimistic that we will be facing a scenario where we are talking about all the new ways we can invest in our institutions and, the kind of the flood of new capital projects funding that we'll have, the reinvestment that we'll be able to see. That's what I'm optimistic about. And it's also important to know, it's like, if we don't get everything this year, like, the year 2 of the budget is much rosier and there's a lot more wiggle room that the legislature has to work with under the spending cap. If we don't get everything we want this year, we're damn sure coming back next year and asking for it all again and asking probably for even more. So it's the state advocacy is a kind of an iterative process that we're always coming back and working with them. So I am never the one who is like the optimistic one, but I am cautiously optimistic about what we are looking at this year, if that helps.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate the clarification. And I think a lot of people probably feel better hearing that because I think it's sometimes when we get in these situations, it's hard to see it like that. So that makes a lot more sense now. So thank you. Are there any last minute questions? Anything like that? Oh, yep. I think Joanne, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, may I please? It's a very positive thing. This was the suggestion of President Chang. The vice chair of our Board of Regents and I went privately to meet with the governor 2 weeks ago. Our intent clearly was not to ask for money, not to say we're not going to go and do this support because you're not giving us money. We were very positive. He listened, they took notes. He wanted to know about students. And the thing that I love about being chair of the Board of Regents is I taught 10 years as an adjunct faculty member at Naugatuck Valley and at Northwest Connecticut Community College. And in that process, I met many, many young people. There were people from all traditional students, but older people who had been in the business field quite a long time. But I must say, he loved the stories I shared with him and the impact those students now have on in their careers. And one was a young woman who had come from South America, spoke very little English. They sent her to me because at that point I was in the employment industry. And I found her a job, but I told her that she needed to continue her education. So she started at Northwest Connecticut Community College. She went on to Central. She went on to further her education. She now has a PhD, and she's on the staff of Northwest Connecticut Community College. Well, the governor actually smiled, and we had a great conversation. So it's very important that we keep this dialogue. And I want to let you know also that our chamber covers 21 towns in the northwest corner. We've had 3 legislative opportunities with our business community and the legislators. And another one is coming up on Monday, March 27th at the Community Health and Wellness Center. And if any of you are interested in joining me as our guest, just please give me a call. I'm at the Northwest Connecticut Chamber, 860-482-6586. I'll be glad to include you at that reception because they need to hear from you. So I applaud each and every one of you for doing what you're doing and being on this meeting, but being on this committee, because you're the ones who are going to make the big difference. We just had one with President Chang and Dr. Michael Rook at Northwestern. The stars of that meeting were the 2 students who spoke. So you play a great role here, and the positive always wins. So I appreciate Ben and Sean because they're doing a fabulous job for all of us, but you are key in this whole scenario. So thank you very much, and I'm so happy that I was able to sit in on your meeting today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Joanne, for those words. I really appreciate it. Would it be possible to get your phone number in the chat, just so?
Sure.
Yeah, just so we have that, and so everyone is able to copy that down and then give you a call if they're able
Good.
to.
I'll be happy to do that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Are there any other last minute questions, anything like that? And Ben, I don't know if you had another thing to say too. I didn't want to cut you off.
No, no, again, thank you all for your attention here. I'm really, I'm thrilled with the level of support we've gotten from not only students, but also faculty and staff. And I think it's really important that, CSU institutions pull together, and demand sounds strong, but to strongly ask for what we need and what we deserve, what you all deserve as our students. So thank you for your attention on this. And my office and Sean's office again are always prepared to answer your questions or help you in this process any way we can.
Yeah, and I just dropped my email in the chat too. Please feel free, reach out to me if you as individuals, if you have groups of your colleagues on campus are interested in advocating and getting involved, just want to reach out to legislators, you want help navigating it, you even just want somebody to take a second look at an email or piece of testimony or an advocacy push you're doing, like by all means, do not hesitate to reach out. Like I know we all genuinely say, please reach out to us, but you have no idea how much everybody in the system will drop what they're doing, no matter how important it is to help our students connect with folks, to help you navigate whatever it is you need to navigate. So please take us up on it. We genuinely would love to help you, help facilitate that connection and help your voices be heard, because you all are honestly, I know it sounds cheesy to say, but you're all why we're here. And you all are the ones that legislators want to hear from, and you are the most impactful voices and the most impactful advocates for yourselves, for your colleagues, and the institutions that serve you. So thank you all for what you do. Thank you for being a part of the SAC, for advocating for yourself and your colleagues, and for any of you willing to be involved and I can rope you into some advocacy. Thank you in advance for the hard work I will put you to.
Yeah, no, again, thank you so much. And Holly too, I want to also give you the chance if you have any last words to anything you want to say as well.
Yeah, my information is in the chat. And I said this last time, but I'll say it again. If you need anything, right? If you have concerns about anything and you want to talk to somebody on the board and get your voice heard and amplified, like send me an email. I promise to respond. I promise to share my cell phone number. I promise to come buy you coffee and listen. We, like, as Regents, we really do care about the students. We really do. And so if there's concerns you have about your campus that you don't feel comfortable talking about here, or unrelated to funding or whatever it is, I am always happy to listen. So my information's in the chat.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you all very much. And I don't think we have any last minute questions. So I think we'll continue through our agenda. But yeah, did I miss
Thank
anything?
you very much.
Yeah, thank you again.
All right, take care.
All right. So I know that was a lot of information. So I'm not gonna try to talk everyone's ear off too as we continue the rest of the agenda. But I do want to make sure we get attendance, so that we make sure everyone gets documented that they're here, and that anyone that has to leave early also has the opportunity to. So Angela, would you be able to help me with attendance?
Sure.
Perhaps?
Happy to do that. Okay.
And thank you so much for helping me with attendance, by the way.
Well, happy to help. Okay, so campuses. Central Connecticut State University.
I'm present.
If you could just do us a favor to make Oliver's life a little bit easier, could you just, when I say the campus name, could you just say your first and last name so when he does the minutes, it makes it a little bit easier, please? For Central, go ahead again, please.
Joshua Edson.
Thank you. Eastern, obviously Oliver. Southern, Alex. And then Western Connecticut State University, we have, I think, an alternate here today.
Hello, yeah, so I'm Izan Khan. Earlier in the meeting, the secondary for the SAC meeting was Akanksha Kopasetti. She was also representing, but we had to switch each other out because of time conflicts.
Okay. Charter Oak. I believe Donna's here.
Donna Wagner.
Thank you. As Nantuck.
Samuel Fagerquist.
Thank you. Capital. Gateway.
Sorry, hi, I'm here for Capital.
Gonna figure out my mic.
That's okay. Who's speaking, please?
I'm Joy.
Joy. And Gateway Community College? Housatonic? And Manchester? Middlesex?
Venetiana Candela.
Thank you. Naugatuck Valley?
Nelly Rivera.
Northwestern, I believe we have Owen here representing Northwestern today. Owen, is that accurate?
That's right. Yep, Owen Freeman.
Thank you. Thank you. Norwalk Community College. Quinnebog Valley. Three Rivers.
Safira Dollars.
Thank you. And Tunxus. Okay. Thank you very much for helping us with the attendance.
Awesome. Oh yeah, thank you, Angelo, and thank you all to everyone that's as an alternate, or even actually just attending in general too. Hour and a half of your Fridays, very gracious for you to offer up. But I am also being very conscious of time, so I'm going to try to get through the rest of the things we have, so we're not staying over. So the next thing we have on our agenda, because we already got the budget and tuition updates, is essentially our last few meetings. So I just put a link to just a list of our meetings. You can see all the meetings, actually, Board of Regents, everything, but you can also filter it for just student advisory. But I'm also just going to tell you about it anyway, so if you just want to listen, that's fine too. But we do have 3 more meetings after this one. So we have April 21st, October 13th, and then November 30th. All the same times. It's going to be at 10 a.m. And if I'm misspeaking to or forgetting anything, Angelo, just let me know. But those are our last 3 meetings as of right now. So just be aware of that, and as we come into the meetings, if we have anything to share and any problems that we also want to continue to discuss, just be prepared to do that. Just because we have a limited amount of time before, it's a new board and everything like that. So yeah, but we also have a spot for open discussion. I actually wanted to ask a question to Angelo because I know we previously talked about someone from the library services coming in. Do we know the status of that? Because I think you might have updated me. I just forgot.
Yep, sure. That's thanks for the reminder. So just pulling it up right now. So because we had the CSCU 2030 presentation today,
yeah,
they are going to come to the next meeting.
Okay.
Which is our April meeting, and Patrick is the program manager for library consortium operations at the system office, and he had mentioned that he's happy to bring a team to the next meeting to talk about the library system, how it works, some of the benefits of interlibrary loaning and taking out of books, and technology and resources. So we'll add him to the agenda per our last discussion to the April meeting.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Because I know we don't have a lot of meetings left, so for that meeting specifically, I would definitely try to come with some questions. I mean, obviously, I'm sure we're gonna have a lot of questions after the presentation, naturally. But definitely, I would try to come with a few questions just so we can hopefully get the ball moving. Because, like I said, we don't have a lot more meetings left to go. So yeah. Any questions though about the schedule, anything like that? And again, if there's any confusion, so I put the link in the chat so you can see all the meetings that are coming up. Okay. All right. So other than that, too, we just have open discussion for Reader, so I just want to make sure any concerns, questions about anything, whether it's a presentation that you didn't get to ask or anything that you're seeing at your respective institution, definitely feel free to voice that now.
Alex, there might be some additional time at the April meeting if you wanted to have if the group wanted to have another person come in to do a discussion on a topic of interest or an informational presentation, if that's something that the Student Advisory Committee is interested in. But I'll defer to the group. They'll probably, the library folks will probably take 30 minutes, I would imagine. So if there's another area that we could schedule and bring someone in, I'm sure that they would be happy to do that if you just, get that information now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to remember, kind of like looking at my notes on the side, if we had any other groups that could possibly come in. Because I think we did talk about in the past food service insecurity and housing insecurity. So I'm not sure if that's something we're still interested in someone coming in and talking about that. But I'm not sure what the consensus is of the group right now. Or does anyone have a? Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Samuel.
Since we don't have a lot of time and some of our meetings will be taken up by people speaking, would it behoove us to maybe have one or two extra meetings, as it were?
Yeah, I'm not sure how that works, so but I think that would be probably helpful.
Yeah, we can hold a special meeting. We just need to give the notice for that meeting, and if we want to do that, that's definitely something that could be entertained and scheduled. That's not an issue. If you feel like you need more time to work on a specific issue, or you want to bring someone in that's not available at our normally scheduled meeting, for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would be good. So Angela, maybe I'll just talk to you after about that and just see how we can get the information out to everyone, get the communication out. But I guess for even if we didn't have additional meetings for right now, did anyone um I guess feel more compelled to any other topic area? Because again, like we talked about food insecurity last time, we do talk about housing insecurity as well. I just didn't know if we wanted to have someone come in and speak, or we can even just still focus on textbooks right now, have that discussion, and then if we feel that, okay, this is a bigger, or this is not even a bigger issue, but there's other issues that are stemming off this that we could also discuss, we can definitely do that too. But I just want to make sure, we use all of our time effectively. Okay.
I mean, you can also email Alex, I would imagine, if something comes to you this weekend,
Yeah.
or you think of something, and then, Alex, Lewis, and I can get together and talk about that and see if we can get something additional scheduled, if that's the preference of the group, for sure. That'll be easy to do.
Yeah, I'm just gonna I'm just gonna put my school email in the chat as well as my phone number. So just feel free, because I know I'm sure there are questions that may come, or not even questions, but concerns that may come up after we leave. Happens to me all the time. Just feel free to shoot me a text, send me an email. I'll communicate it to Angelo, the rest of the board, and we'll definitely figure out a way to get it on the agenda and for us to talk about it at a future meeting as well.
And we'll send out the presentation. I know that there was a lot of information today that was discussed, and maybe after you download the PowerPoint, you have questions, and we'll make sure that any questions that get asked after the fact, you get an answer to. So we know that presentation was very thorough. So any progress about no classes on election day? I will circle back on that and give you an update at the next meeting. I know that there was some discussion about holidays and some additional holidays that might have been added to the academic calendar, but I don't have an answer on that just yet. But I do know it was discussed. Thank you for the reminder. Make a note.
Yeah, I think there's a pretty large list of like different things that want to be added to the calendar, if I'm not wrong, to Angela, that was sent out a few months ago. So yeah, I guess an update on that would be awesome. Thank you. Good question, Oliver. Okay, and like I said, I'm being conscious of time, so I just want to make sure. And Angela too, let me know if we're not hitting anything. But any questions, concerns, anything like that? Okay. All right, that's fine. Just again, take down my email, take down my number. I want to be available. So if you guys have questions, anything like that, concerns, just want to chat about something, you can always contact me. It's no issue. And we can do that for sure.
Do you want to take a motion to adjourn, Alex, if there's nothing else in a second, and then we can?
Yeah, I think so.
Meeting?
Yeah. Okay, so no other questions, concerns. Can I just get a motion to begin adjourning this meeting?
I move to adjourn.
All right, so I think that was Joshua. And then, sorry, who was the second one?
Donna.
Donna. Okay, well, thank you all so much. I'll stick around for a little bit too if you have any questions, but I think we're all set. And I will see you all in
Thank
April.
you, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Joanne, for joining us.
Thank you, Chair Ryan. Take care.